and welcome back. If this is your first time, I hope you'll stay. Espero que te quedes. Now, I have done a video in Spanish maybe about a month ago about Spanish words that do not exist in English. And so I thought, how can I do it the other way around? And so I thought, well, I'm going to give you words that don't have an exact translation in Spanish, so you sort of have to explain what you mean, okay? I got these words from what we've been seeing this term and last term in class, from our readings, from our listenings, and just from our general conversing in both English and Spanish. Okay, so we're going to start off with the first one, which I think is an expression that you will hear quite often, moral compass, when you're talking about, you know, that thing that sort of leads you in the right direction to make the right choices, right decisions, and do what is right. We refer to that as your moral compass. And I was talking to my partner the other day, and I was like, word for word you would get in Spanish brújula, which is compass, and then moral, which is moral. But no one says that, and I just said that because I thought it existed. Tu brújula moral, and he sort of looked at me and went, what are you talking about? So, and I couldn't really come up with a word for that. And so in the end, we decided that the closest thing to it would be in Spanish, conciencia. Conciencia, conscience, yes, your conscience, la conciencia, okay? If you have a better definition of moral compass in Spanish, please share, because you know more heads are always better than just one or two heads. So please come together, ask around, because we need to find a more suitable explanation or word for or even expression for moral compass. Conciencia, that's what it is, but it doesn't really fit exactly. You know what I mean? So we're going to leave that one. Moral compass, conciencia, conciencia. We're going to leave it, but I'm not 100% fulfilled with that one. There's just something missing, okay? So that's the first one that we use a lot. I use this expression a lot, and I'm not quite sure conciencia explains it completely, or it's just not as cool. I love this expression in English. Okay, right, so the next expression is a wave. See you tomorrow. This is a wave, right? Wave in Spanish. Everyone that I've asked this, what's a wave? They're like, hola. I'm like, no, not wave as in wave in the water. I mean like wave to say, wave somebody goodbye. Just a wave is an expression. You would just explain what you're doing. Saludar con la mano. That's literally what it is. Saludar con la mano. But wave as a verb, as a one-word verb, no. You're just explaining what you're doing. You're literally greeting or saying goodbye with your hand, with a gesture. With a hand gesture, you're saying goodbye or you're saying hello. A wave. There is no word for that, okay? So it is saludar or despedir. Despedirse de alguien. So, saludar con un gesto de la mano. That's literally what a wave is, but that's just explaining there isn't just one word. Wave. What are you doing? I'm waving. ¿Qué estás haciendo? Estoy saludando con un gesto así de la mano. It's not quite the same. It's just too long. It is way too long. We need a shorter word. Come on, RAE. Or maybe there is. Can you think of another way of saying wave? It doesn't exist. It does not exist. And if it does, prove me wrong. Let me know if you've heard another word. Okay, moving down to eavesdrop. The verb eavesdrop. What is it? It's literally an action, isn't it? Explain what you're doing. That word doesn't exist in English, in Spanish. You actually have to explain what it is. Escuchar detrás de la puerta. You're listening behind the door. Escuchar detrás de la puerta. You're eavesdropping. So a lot of times when Spanish students hear this word, it's new to them. Eavesdrop, what's that? Then I have to explain to them. And sometimes I'll say, do you have a word for that? And they'll say, no, it's just what you said. Just listening, escuchar detrás de la puerta, to eavesdrop. Okay, so those three are done for you. So number 4 relates to our modern world, technological world. We're on the internet a lot, and of course, it is so evident all the haters that are online. I mean, I have haters on my page, and this is a study corner. This is an educational channel, and from time to time, I will get a hater or two saying something just really horrible, and you're like, what's the point? So hater, translated quite literally, would be odiador, but that doesn't exist at all. So Spanish people just say hater with an accent. Un hater, yeah, un hater. That's just, they would just say that because there isn't a Spanish word for that. Una persona que negativa, que solamente sabe decir cosas horribles. When we're talking about online hate and haters, there isn't a translation. So if you're talking in Spanish and you're referring to haters, you would just say the same word, but just put a little bit of an accent on it. Haters, yeah? Or maybe there's a different pronunciation, I don't know. That's what these kids over here, that's what they say anyways. Okay, next one. In the English world, we are very specific when we're talking about thieves, okay? There are different types of thieves. If you nick stuff from the shop, you're a shoplifter, okay? If you nick stuff from a house, you're a burglar, okay? So it depends where you're stealing from. If you hold somebody up in the street as well, or if you steal something, somebody is walking and you steal something from the pocket, they're a pickpocket, okay? In Spanish, all thieves are just thieves. They're just ladrón. So you really have to specify and explain where the ladrón has stolen from, okay? So entró a mi casa, el ladrón. So he came into my house, okay? So in English, you could just get to the point and we will know exactly what kind of thief it is. If you said a burglar, you will know that he entered somebody's property. So in Spanish, if you say thief, we don't know what kind of thief it is. And that we all know there are lots of different types of thieves. So if you're saying shoplifter, in Spanish there is no one word for shoplifter, it's just thief, ladrón. That is it. All thieves in Spanish are thieves. There you go. So that one is a funny one. One that I love is stare. We see this a lot. Especially here, people stare so much, but there isn't just a single word to say that. You have to describe it. How do you say stare in Spanish? Mirar, to look, fijamente, okay? So to look without taking your eyes off, so fijamente, fixedly, okay? To stare, just look, just stare at someone. Mirar fijamente, that's how you would say it. Fijar, fixed, fixedly, in a fixed manner, without taking your eyes off. To look without taking your eyes away. There you go, stare. No me gusta que me miren tan fijamente. I don't like that they stare at me so much. There you go. Right, this one, chop, it was not on the list, but I just put it on because we've come to the realization that we do a lot of eating in my classes. We eat a lot. And this is a word that comes up a lot. I'm always saying, please stop chopping. And Spanish kids are always like, what do you mean by chopping? And so I have to explain. So chopping there isn't a word. Chopping in Spanish is cortar, which is just to cut or to chop. But chopping, I mean, is when you're eating and you chop in your mouth like, or you're chewing and you're making a lot of noise. So in Spanish, you would just say it, you would explain what you're saying. Deja de comer tan ruidosamente, okay? O no hagas ruido cuando comes, okay? So don't make noise when you eat. Instead of just saying, stop chopping, don't chop. I don't know if I use this word excessively, and that's why I've put it on the list, but I'm always saying this. I'm always saying this word, and I've just realized that there isn't an exact translation in Spanish. You have to be descriptive. Comer ruidosamente. To chop. No comas tan ruidosamente, hombre. Okay? Next one. Kettle. Look, even in my classroom, I'll have you know, I cannot be without my kettle. I cannot be without my kettle. Okay? Last time I went to my friend's house, she asked if I wanted a cup of tea, and so I said yes, and she put the water in the microwave, and I was like, don't you have a kettle? And she was like, what's the kettle? And so I explained to her and I showed a picture of a kettle, and she didn't know what this was, but this was a long time ago, and now I see them in the shop quite a lot here. But when I just moved to Spain, when I was doing Erasmus back in the day, they didn't have them. It's not something you saw as much. Kettle, which is just hervidor, which is a boiler, hervidor de agua, okay? So that's what a kettle is. And I do think it's relatively new, because when I was doing Erasmus and I came here, I didn't see not one in any of my friends' houses, not one. Whereas nowadays, I do see them when, even if I go to the shop and I ask for a kettle, they have them. In the year 2000, there were none. So they've come a long way, I have to say. At least in this small city where I am. Okay, next, the verb to commute, or you have the word a commuter, okay? So a person who travels to work every day. So perhaps I live in Wiltshire and I go to London on the train every day, okay? I'm a commuter. Back and forth every day from work to home. In Spanish, there isn't a word for the verb commute or commuter. So you have to describe it. To commute, viajar diariamente al trabajo. Okay? Trabajar diariamente al trabajo. Traveling daily to work. From work to home. De trabajo a casa. But it doesn't refer to de tu trabajo aquí a tu casa ahí. It literally means a long distance. You have to take transportation and go quite far away to work and then come back every day. A long trip. Okay, normally if you commute, it's because you have to go a long way and come back. And perhaps it would make more sense to just stay in the city where you are instead of coming back every day. But you're a commuter, you commute, you go back and forth. Okay, there you go. And the last word, this came up in a reading that we did yesterday for our advanced students, and we got confused with this word. Is miscarriage. Okay, so we were reading a text that had miscarriage in, which was, the concept was a bit difficult because in the dictionary it just says aborto in English, in Spanish aborto, but aborto is just an abortion, and we know that in English an abortion is very different from a miscarriage. A miscarriage is when you lose a baby and you didn't really mean to. It's just something that happens. Okay, maybe your body just couldn't cope with the pregnancy, or something happened which led to you losing a baby. Whereas an abortion, aborto, which is the same that you will find an abortion in the dictionary, will say aborto as well. And we know an abortion is when you go and terminate the pregnancy. So that is completely different from a miscarriage. But there isn't a word for miscarriage in Spanish. It's the same as abortion. the word is aborto. So be careful and make sure you specify that if it ever comes up. Okay, so these are my 10 words, and by no means the only 10 words in English that don't have an exact translation in Spanish. So you have to explain the verb or the noun. Okay, there it is. I hope you found this video helpful, and share. And maybe you have a friend who will find this video of use. And with that, I'm going to say adios, and until the next time, que me voy con mi hervidor de agua para hacerme un té. Okay, because the next class is coming and I need a cuppa. Okay, so see you guys. Take care. And yeah, oh, don't forget to subscribe.